Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the football betting series here on YouTube Premier League edition. January got off to an okay start with 4 wins and a push. So far we're unbeaten in 2025 coming into the FA Cup weekend. When we add that to our overall record, we're standing at 100 wins, 39 losses and 19 pushes for a total series profit of £599 and 21 pence. I've got 4 picks in today's episode, so if you think I'm talking some sense, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Without further ado, let's get into it. Our first selection sees 14th place West Ham playing host to 9th place Fulham. And West Ham, they were taken apart in their last match by Manchester City. A Kufal own goal got the Hammers off to the worst possible start after just 10 minutes, and from there on Man City assumed control of the game. They were up 4-0 at one point before Fulkrug added a consolation goal for the Irons in the 71st minute to make the scoreline look a tad better. But at the end, it was a heavy loss. In terms of form, that does mean it's back-to-back losses for West Ham in the Premier League, and Julian Lopetegui has now been relieved of his duties as the West Ham manager, with Graham Potter being linked to the job. They host a Fulham side who drew their last match against Ipswich Town. The Tractor Boys opened the scoring through Sammy Szmodics in the 34th minute, against the run of play in that match as Fulham were in control until that point. Ipswich held on to their lead until the half-time whistle, but that all changed in the 69th minute as Sam Morsy gave away a penalty with Raul Jimenez dispatching Cooley. Then, just 2 minutes later, Ipswich Town managed to hit the front once again thanks to their own penalty, which Delap converted, and that set a record for the shortest amount of time between 2 penalties in the Premier League era. However, the penalties weren't done yet, as right at the end of the game, Leif Davis brought down Jimenez in the box moments after Ipswich Town hit the post to go 3-1 up. The Mexican stepped up to the spot for a second time to earn his second goal. The Cottagers earned a point, the scoreline 2-2. In terms of form, Fulham are unbeaten in their last 8 Premier League games, drawing 6 of these matches. When we look at the head-to-head record, the reverse fixture saw a 1-1 draw back in December. Raul Jimenez put Fulham ahead before Danny Ings rescued West Ham at the death with a 95th minute equaliser. When we look at the numbers, Fulham may feel disappointed not to have picked up all 3 points in this one. They had almost 2 times the amount of shots and generated 4 times the amount of big chances, resulting in double the XG. That draw broke a 2-game winning streak for Fulham, but that does mean the Cottagers are unbeaten in the last 3 encounters against West Ham. My prediction for today's game is this match brings 2 sides together of contrasting forms. West Ham are coming into this game on the back of 3 matches without a win, whereas Fulham have proved tricky to beat over the last month and then some. West Ham are the 13th best side in the league, with the 14th best home record, winning just 30% of matches at the Olympic Stadium, whereas Fulham, they have the 8th best away record, only being beaten in 2 of their 9 or 22% of away matches. The only thing stopping me from backing Fulham outright here is the amount of draws they've had in their unbeaten run, 6 of the last 8 matches. So that's leading me to lay the home side here for a full stake in bet number 1. Our second selection sees 3rd place Nottingham Forest playing host to 1st place Liverpool. And Forest, they added to a great run of form with yet another win, this time against Wolverhampton at Molineux. Gibbs White got the party started after just 7 minutes, with Wood adding a second before the half-time whistle. Taiwo Awoniyi then killed off the game with goal number 3, with 3-0 the final score to Forest. In terms of form, that does mean it's 6 wins in a row for Nottingham Forest, and that's propelled Nuno Espirito Santo's side all the way up to 3rd place in the division. They host a Liverpool side who faced Manchester United in their last game, a match in which everyone and their dog was expecting a bit of a battering, with a few pundits backing the scores of 4 or even 5-0. However, despite Liverpool edging the game statistically, Manchester United played a lot better than they have in recent weeks. Martinez's shot hit the crossbar before finding its way past Onana to put the Red Devils in front. This lead would only last 7 minutes before Gakpo levelled the scores, and then Mo Salah put Liverpool ahead from the penalty spot, before Diallo tied up the game right at the end, with the scores finishing 2-2. In terms of form, that result did break a 4-game winning streak for Liverpool, but the Reds are unbeaten in their last 24 games across all competitions, with their only loss of the season coming against today's hosts, Nottingham Forest. In terms of the head-to-head record, last match took place in mid-September at Anfield, and despite Liverpool holding nearly 70% of the ball and taking 3 times the amount of shots of their visitors, the match was settled by a single goal scored by Callum Hudson-Odoi in the 72nd minute against a run of play, with Forest picking up a massive 3 points to really show their intent for this season. Longer term, that result broke a 3-game winning streak for Liverpool over Forest. My prediction for today's game is that a lot of folks will like Liverpool in a revenge spot here, although I do feel that Liverpool will win the match. Liverpool also have quite a lot on this month. The Premier League game comes 3 days after the FA Cup tie against Accrington, which in itself will only come 3 days after the semi-finals of the EFL Cup against Spurs, in which time Forest are only playing once, and will definitely come into this match the fresher of the two sides. So I'm liking goals in this match. Nottingham Forest have seen over 2.5 goals in 4 of their last 7 Premier League games, and in 3 of their last 5 matches at home. Liverpool, on the other hand, they've seen over 2.5 goals in each of the last 6 Premier League matches and in each of their last 5 away games in the league. When we look at the head-to-head record, this is where the over 2.5 goals argument falls down. Both of the last 2 games have seen just a single goal scored, with only 1 in the last 6 games at the City Ground seeing over 2.5 goals. That was in 1999. Therefore, I will back over 2.5 goals, but just for a half stake in bet number 2. Our third pick in today's episode sees 5th place Newcastle playing host to 17th place Wolverhampton. And despite conceding the opening goal after just 3 minutes, Newcastle battled back to draw level after 6 through Anthony Gordon, and then they hit the front before the half-time whistle with Isaac's contribution from 6 yards. It was 2-1 at half-time, and 2-1 is how the game would finish, with Spurs pushing a lot in the second period but unable to get that breakthrough goal. In terms of form, that does mean it's 5 wins in a row for Newcastle, and that's by an aggregate score of 15 goals to just 1. They host a Wolves side who were taken apart in their last match against Nottingham Forest, losing 3 goals to 0. But when we take a look at the numbers, Wolves are perhaps hard done by the 3-0 scoreline, as they did get off a number of chances and their expected goals was well over 1. In terms of form, this loss broke a 3-game unbeaten run for Wolves, form which had been good enough to keep them out of the relegation zone in recent weeks. When we look at the head-to-head record, Newcastle did pick up the win, although it was Mario Lemina that opened the scoring for Wolves, and looking at the stats, they were the much better side in the first half. But the game was flipped on its head in the second period as Newcastle focused a lot less on possession retention and more on chance creation, and create they did. Goals from Shah in the 75th and Barnes in the 80th minute saw the Magpies win 2 goals to 1. As a result of this match, it's back-to-back wins for Newcastle over Wolves, and they're unbeaten in the last 6 Premier League encounters. My prediction for today's game is that Wolves have benefited from the new manager bounce in games against Leicester and Manchester United, but Newcastle are a different challenge entirely, and they are in some sparkling form right now. This match also takes place at St James Park, which is promising for Newcastle fans as they have the 5th best home record in the division, with 5 wins, 2 draws and 2 defeats. They are also allowing the second fewest goals at home too. Wolves have a bottom half record and have won just 2 of their last 10 away matches this season, so for all these reasons I'm going to be backing Newcastle to pick up a win for a full stake in bet number 3. Our fourth and final selection in today's episode is probably the biggest game of the weekend. It's the North London derby as 2nd place Arsenal play host to 12th place Tottenham Hotspurs. And the Gunners, they were held to a draw in their last match against Brighton. Arsenal got off to a great start thanks to Ethan Nwaneri scoring his 2nd Premier League goal in just his 2nd start for the club. However, a controversial penalty was awarded to Brighton for a clash of heads in the penalty box, with João Pedro dispatching the spot kick to level the scores at 1-1, and that's how the game would finish. Although Arsenal were hard done by the penalty decision, it is hard to build a case to suggest that they were the clear winners in the match. When we look at Arsenal's form, this draw did end a run of 3 wins in a row for the Gunners, although they have maintained a 10-game unbeaten streak. They've not given up on the title by a long shot. They host a Spurs side who were better than their last match against Newcastle. Solanke opened the scoring after just 3 minutes, taking advantage of Sven Botman's lack of match sharpness to give his side the lead. This lead would not survive long as Anthony Gordon levelled the scores and Isaac put Spurs behind before the half-time whistle, with the final score ending 2-1 to the Magpies. In terms of form, it's starting to get a bit worrying for Spurs now. They're winless in their last 4 matches. When we look at the head-to-head record, the reverse fixture saw the Gunners pick up all 3 points on the road. Arsenal's set-piece superiority was evident once again as Gabriel scored the only goal in the game from a corner kick. This was the real highlight in the match, which didn't see too many goal-scoring opportunities created. Both North London clubs combined for just 1.45 xG. In terms of the head-to-head form, this win did make it back-to-back victories for Arsenal in the derby, and they are also unbeaten against Spurs in their last 5 meetings. My prediction for today's game is that at the Emirates, no one will be surprised to see Arsenal the heavy favourites in this match. They're also the side in form against a Spurs side who have been about as far from in form as they have been this season, or at all under Postecoglou. Both sides are missing significant pieces though. Saka is a big miss for Arsenal, but we also have to take into account the missing features of Vicario, Van de Ven and Romero in the Spurs defence and goal. Additionally, both sides have EFL and FA Cup ties in a very packed schedule in this point of the year, so we have to take this all into account. This is leading me away from picking a side outright and going for goals instead. Arsenal have seen over 2.5 goals in 2 of their last 4 Premier League games, and the Emirates have also seen low-scoring affairs, with 0 of the last 3 games seeing over 2.5 goals. This is compensated for Spurs, though, who have seen over 2.5 goals in 5 of their last 6 Premier League games, and in 3 of their last 4 away from home. When we look at the head-to-head record, the last game between these sides saw just 1 goal scored, but the clincher for me is that each of the last 6 North London derbies at the Emirates Stadium have seen over 2.5 goals, with an average of 4.17 goals scored over this sample. Frankly, with the way that Spurs are playing right now, Arsenal could score 3 by themselves, so I'm going to back over 2.5 goals for a full stake in the final bet of today's episode. So there we have it, 4 picks in today's episode, starting off with West Ham versus Fulham. We're going to be laying the home side at odds of about 1.5, a £40 full stake to return 20. Also on the Saturday, Forest Liverpool, we're taking over 2.5 goals, odds of 1.67, a half stake of £20 to return £13.40. On to the Sunday now as Newcastle host Wolves. We're backing the host side, odds of 1.35, £40 to return 14, and wrapping up the weekend, Arsenal Spurs, the North London derby. I'm taking over 2.5 goals, odds of 1.4, or 2 to 5 fractional, a £40 full stake to return 16 in kind. So, across the weekend, we're going to be risking £140 to hopefully pick up as much as £63.40. Will we do so? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to tune into next episode. But if you have made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. And as always, have yourself a lovely day.